Hey everyone, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and like this video because what I'm about to confess has been eating me alive for months. My daughter-in-law whispered to me in the dark, "I'm pregnant, and it's yours." The night we shared still haunts me every single time I close my eyes. I'm a 52-year-old widower. 2 years after my wife passed, I moved in with my son and his wife. The house felt too big without her, and I felt useless, just taking up space in the corners of rooms that used to feel like home. One rainy evening my son was away on a business trip. She came home soaked from work, hair dripping, clothes clinging in a way that made the hallway suddenly feel too narrow. I grabbed a towel and met her there. When our hands brushed while I handed it over, that was the first time I really noticed the warmth of her skin. And the faint lavender scent that would later drive me crazy. I told myself I was just being a helpful father-in-law, nothing more. But that night I couldn't sleep. Her gentle thank you kept echoing, soft and close, like it was still hanging in the air between us. "She's your son's wife. What the hell is wrong with you? You're supposed to protect this family, not notice how her wet hair clung to her neck. Not feel that pull, that quiet gravity drawing your eyes back to the doorway where Shed stood." For the first time in years, I felt something other than grief. Forbidden, dangerous, and it scared me how alive it made me feel. Every morning after that, I'd make coffee while she got ready for work. We started sharing small conversations about her stressful job, her voice still carrying that sleepy softness from the night before. The one who owned the house, the one she leaned on when my son worked late again. The power imbalance sat there between us like an unspoken secret. And I hated how much I noticed it. She'd borrow my late wife's oversized sweater from the laundry sometimes, the soft texture of it on her shoulders, still warm from the dryer, carrying that lavender scent mixed with her own warmth. God, it made the kitchen feel smaller every time. I kept telling myself this is insane. She's carrying my son's last name. I should be ashamed. Yet every time she laughed at my dumb jokes, the loneliness in my chest eased just a little. Like someone had cracked a window in a room I'd sealed shut. One night she couldn't sleep and knocked softly on my bedroom door, asking for help with a headache. I sat her on the edge of the bed and gave her a shoulder massage. The moment my hands touched her bare skin under the thin straps of her tank top, the air changed. Thick, electric. We both froze, her breath shallow, mine caught somewhere in my throat. Neither of us pulled away. The next week my son was traveling again. We watched a movie together on the couch. She fell asleep against my shoulder, her head heavy and trusting, hair tickling my arm. I should wake her. I should move. Instead I sat there breathing in that lavender scent, telling myself it was innocent. While my heart raced like I was 20 again, like the years had melted and left only this aching hunger. Half-lidded eyes and whispered, "I've been so lonely too." Her words hung there, trembling between us like the last breath before surrender. And in that moment, everything we'd been circling finally broke. We ended up in my room that night, the door clicking shut behind us like a secret locking itself in. The dim light from the hallway spilled across the floor, barely touching the edges of the bed where we stood inches apart. Her eyes searched mine, wide and uncertain, and I could feel the heat rising from her skin through the thin fabric of her tank top. So close I could count the tiny tremors in her breath. This is insane, I thought, even as my hands found her waist. She's carrying my son's name, sleeping under his roof. I'm the one who should be the steady rock here, not the man pulling her closer because the loneliness in both of us had grown too loud to ignore. Tentative at first, then curling into my shirt, the ache in me answered before my mind could stop it. We didn't speak much after that. Just soft sounds. Her quiet exhale against my neck, the way my name left her lips like a confession she couldn't hold back. The feel of her smooth skin under my palms, warm and yielding, sent waves of heat through me that I hadn't known in years. She trembled when I drew her nearer, her body fitting against mine in a way that felt both wrong and impossibly right, like gravity finally winning after months of resistance. I kept thinking, we should stop. This crosses every line we pretended wasn't there. But stopping felt like drowning on dry land. Instead, we surrendered to the pull, slow and desperate, the kind of closeness that erases time and leaves only the present moment burning between us. Afterward, lying there in the dark with her head on my chest, listening to her breathing even out, guilt crashed over me like cold rain. What have I done? This is my son's wife. I've taken something sacred and shattered it with my own hands. But God, it felt like coming back to life after 2 years of being half dead. Her lavender scent lingered on my sheets, mixing with the faint warmth we'd shared, and I hated how much I already craved it again. The next few mornings carried the weight of what we'd done. She'd pass me in the kitchen, eyes dropping shyly, a small smile playing on her lips that made my pulse stumble. I told myself it was a one-time slip, a moment of shared loneliness we'd both regret and bury. Yet every time our hands brushed reaching for the same mug, that electric spark returned, hotter now, laced with the memory of her trembling against me. One afternoon, when my son called to say he'd be gone another week, the air in the house thickened with possibility. She found me in the living room, twisting her fingers nervously. I can't stop thinking about it, she whispered, stepping closer until the space between us vanished. Her voice carried that same soft vulnerability, pulling at the emptiness I'd tried so hard to ignore. I should have sent her away. Instead, I reached for her, telling myself this would be the last time, while knowing deep down the hunger had only grown. We stole more moments after that, quick and breathless when the house was quiet. A lingering touch in the hallway, her body pressing close for just a second too long. The way she'd look at me across the dinner table, cheeks flushed, like we shared a secret the walls could never tell. Each time, the internal war raged louder. This is destroying everything. You're ruining your own blood. But when she laughed softly at something I said, or leaned into me seeking that same comfort, the loneliness eased, and I felt seen again in a way I hadn't since losing my wife. That lavender scent became my undoing. It clung to her clothes, to the air after she'd left a room, reminding me of how her breath had quickened against my skin, how the world had narrowed to just us and the forbidden heat we created. I was falling, slowly, terrifyingly, into something I had no right to want. Then came the night that shifted everything again. We were alone once more, the rain tapping against the windows like a warning we both ignored. She curled against me on the couch, her head resting where it had that first time, but now her hand traced lazy patterns on my arm, sending shivers I couldn't hide. The movie played on, forgotten. Her breathing grew deeper, heavier, and when she lifted her gaze to mine, those heavy-lidded eyes held a question that made my chest tighten. "I've been so lonely too," she'd said before. But tonight her whisper carried something heavier, something that made the room feel smaller, the pull stronger. My hand rested on her shoulder, thumb brushing the strap of her top, and neither of us moved to break the contact. The ache returned, sharper now, mixed with the terrifying knowledge that we were no longer circling. We were already lost in it. And just as her lips parted to say more, the sound of a car door outside froze us both. It was my son, home early from his trip, his keys jingling in the lock like a judgment I deserved. We sprang apart, hearts hammering so loud I was sure he could hear them through the walls. She smoothed her hair, cheeks burning, and slipped into the kitchen as if nothing had happened. I sat there, frozen, the ghost of her warmth still pressed against my side, that lavender scent now angled with the sharp sting of fear. The days that followed blurred into a dangerous rhythm. Whenever he left for work or collapsed early from exhaustion, we found each other and stole on fragments of time, a quick brush of fingers in the hallway that lingered one beat too long. Her leaning into me while I reached for something on the high shelf, her breath warm against my collarbone, making my chest tighten with a hunger I couldn't name. At night, when the house grew quiet, she'd text me from their room just a simple "can't sleep," and did wait in the dim light of the laundry room, pulse racing, knowing I should delete the message but never could. Those moments fed something empty inside me. The way she'd look up at me afterward, eyes soft and grateful, whispering how I made her feel seen again. She even started bringing home small things. A new shirt she said matched my eyes, a bottle of the cologne she liked on me just because. It wasn't about the gifts. It was the quiet way she chose me in those hidden seconds, filling the hollow grief had carved out. Yet every time I caught my son smiling at her across the table, proud and oblivious, guilt would crash down heavier, like stones piling on my ribs. This can't go on, I'd tell myself, staring at the ceiling until dawn. We're poisoning the only family I have left. Still, the pull grew stronger, impossible to fight. One rainy afternoon, with him stuck in meetings across town, she pulled me into the laundry room, the door clicking shut behind us. The dryer hummed warm against my back as she pressed close, her hands trembling on my chest. The air thickened with that familiar lavender mixed with the faint dampness of rain on her skin, and for those suspended minutes, the world narrowed to the frantic beat of our hearts and the unspoken promises hanging between us. I felt myself falling deeper, not just craving the closeness anymore, but aching for her in a way that terrified me. This wasn't mere loneliness anymore. It was something warmer, more dangerous, like gravity dragging me toward a fall I wouldn't survive. She started touching her stomach abstinently when she thought no one was watching, a soft, protective gesture that sent ice through my veins even as my pulse quickened with forbidden hope. Around my son she grew distant. Her laughs quieter, her eyes drifting to me when she thought he wasn't looking. I noticed it all, the weight of what we'd built pressing down until breathing felt like a betrayal. How much longer could we pretend this fire wasn't consuming everything? Then came the afternoon she cornered me again near the folding table, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes wide with something I hadn't read. "We need to talk," she breathed, stepping so close the heat of her body wrapped around me like a secret I was helpless to refuse. Her words hung between us like a storm about to break. I swallowed hard, my back still against the warm dryer, her eyes searching mine with a fear that mirrored my own. I managed, voice rough as gravel, already sensing the ground shifting beneath us. Her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, that same oversized one that always carried her lavender scent, now mixed with something sharper, like unshed tears. "Impregnant," she whispered, so softly I almost convinced myself it imagined it. Then she added the part that stopped my heart cold, "and it's yours." The air left the room, my knees nearly buckled. Images flooded in uninvited that night on the couch turning into my bed, her trembling against me, the way we'd both surrendered to the ache we'd been circling for weeks. My son had been gone for nearly 3 weeks then, buried in some overseas deal. The timing, God, the timing fit like a lock clicking shut. I stared at her, this woman who'd become my secret light in the darkness, now carrying a truth that could shatter everything. She was shaking, tears slipping down her cheeks, one hand instinctively drifting to her still flat stomach. I don't know what to do. She breathed, stepping even closer until her forehead almost rested against my chest. He thinks. He assumes it's his. But the dates. I wanted to pull her into my arms, to promise we'd figure it out, to let that familiar warmth chase away the ice flooding my veins. But shame crashed over me instead, heavier than any grief I'd known since losing my wife. "This is the consequence," my mind screamed. "You ruined your son's life. You ruined hers. You took what wasn't yours, and now a child will pay for it. We have to stop," I said finally, the words scraping out like they were torn from me. My hands hovered near her shoulders, aching to comfort, but I forced them to my sides. "Everything, right now, before this destroys what's left of this family." She nodded through her tears, but the way her breath hitched told me she felt the same pull I did. That gravity still tugging us together even as we tried to step apart. In the weeks that followed, I became the shadow I should have been all along. I supported her quietly, driving her to appointments when he couldn't, making sure she ate, keeping the house running so she could rest. But I never crossed the line again. No more stolen touches in the hallway, no more late-night whispers. Just polite nods across the dinner table while my son beamed about becoming a father, clueless to the storm raging inside me. Some nights the memory still wakes me, drenched in sweat. The faint trace of lavender on the air from her sweater left in the laundry, or an old song we once played softly on her phone drifting through the walls. What if it'd been stronger? What if that rainy evening with the towel had ended differently? I chose to carry this secret alone, letting it hollow me out so the family could stay whole on the surface. She's starting to show now, glowing in a way that twists the knife deeper every time I see her. I smile for my son's sake, play the proud grandfather-to-be, but inside I'm drowning in the ache of knowing I'll never hold that child as its father, only as the man who broke everything to create it. I don't know if silence was mercy or cowardice. Would you have told him the truth, even if it burned the house down? Or would you bury it like I did, letting the guilt become your only companion through the long nights? Tell me in the comments. I'm still trying to figure out if I can ever forgive myself. If this story pulled at something in you, like it still pulls at me, hit like and subscribe. There are more confessions where this came from, but none quite like the one that haunts me every time I close my eyes.